Okay, so Sa'i. Sa'i is the next phase, and so once we've completed our our tawaf, so the tawaf is going to be performed here in the mataf, and now we're going to walk toward this mountain called Safa, which is right here. Now, this is Marwa here, and this is Safa here. Now, Safa and Marwa used to be mountains that Hajar alayhi salam had walked between in order to find, or rushed between to find water for her son Ismail alayhi salam. So she walked back and forth 7 times, and so we are going to do the same. Now, the distance between here and here, it's around 1,200 feet. So the total distance, when you're doing sa'i, if my calculations are correct, it's about 1.7 miles of walking. It's a lot of walking, okay? The reason I'm mentioning this here is because we should... the reason I'm mentioning here is because there's a lot of opportunity to spend in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because there's a lot of walking involved. Okay. So this, again, this depiction on the left kind of shows, Safa and Marwa and how we're going to walk between those 7 mountains. So, literally, sa'i means to run, or it means to make an effort. And this was the effort that we're honoring of Hajar alayhi salam, where she made between the mountains of Safa and Marwa, again in search of water for her son Ismail, Prophet Ismail alayhi salam. And we're honoring her ritual. This is performed after tawaf. Sa'i in and of itself is not an independent act of worship. I can't decide, you know what, I want extra reward today, so I'm going to do an extra nafil sa'i. Can't do that. Extra nafil tawaf, of course, the more the merrier, but sa'i cannot be done independently. It's done in a state of ihram. Sorry, let me rephrase that. For the purposes of, it's not an independent act of worship. It's a part of hajj, and outside of hajj, it's a part of the umrah when it's done with tawaf. Now, when we're beginning sa'i, so now we're walking toward sa'i, and there'll be signs from the mataf that tell you how to get to sa'i, and it'll say the beginning of Safa. Now, what we're going to do on the way to sa'i, and many of us miss this step, is that we're going to make one final istilam, or greeting of the black stone. Okay, the way we greet the black stone is by gesturing toward it, like as if we're trying to touch it, and we kiss our palms or kiss our fingers like this. We make one final istilam. So if we're keeping our count, we did 1 istilam to start tawaf. There's 7 rounds of tawaf, so that 1 plus 7 becomes 8. So the last istilam, which is the 9th istilam, is done after Maqam Ibrahim, after Zamzam. I'm now walking towards Safa, and I'm going to look at the black stone on the way to Safa, find it, and gesture toward it and kiss it. We make one final istilam. I'm going to proceed towards Sa'i, the mountain of Sa'i. It's no longer a mountain, but towards Safa, and I'm going to recite the following. أبدأ بما بدأ الله به أبدأ بما بدأ الله به إن الصفا والمروة من شعائر الله. This is the Prophet who actually said this. He says, as he was walking to Safa, he said, I am beginning with that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala began with. Meaning, in the Quran, the verse of the Quran is, إن الصفا والمروة من شعائر الله. That verily the mount of Safa and the mount of Marwa are from the signs of Allah Ta'ala. So the Prophet is, when we're deciding between, well, should I start from Marwa or should I start from Safa? The Prophet is saying, well, I'm going to begin with what Allah Ta'ala began with. So he recited this on his way to Safa, so it's also recommended to recite this and make the intention that I'm beginning from Safa because this is what Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala ordered. This is the order that Allah Ta'ala used in the Quran when He was mentioning these 2 mountains. Once we are there, we make the niyyah of starting the sa'i, and then we face the qibla, and everyone's going to be kind of facing the qibla when they're at the top of Safa, and there you recite the following. Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, 3 times, and then make the following dua. Okay, and the dua is listed here. This is the dua the Prophet recited. La ilaha illallah wahdahu, la ilaha illallah wahdah, la sharika lah, lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu, wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. La ilaha illallah wahdah, anjaza wa'dah, wa nasara abdah, wa hazama al-ahzaba wahdah. Now, do I have to do any of the steps I just mentioned in order for my sa'i to be complete? No. Literally, you could walk towards Safa and start and with the intention and start your sa'i, and it's acceptable. Again, we're highlighting these because these are recommended from the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ for someone who's trying to fulfill every one of these because they're trying to achieve the pinnacle. Our focus and attention shouldn't be on these details unless that's what it should be on where our heart is, right? But for many of us that have gone over and over again, we're trying to pay attention to these details. So, again, we make our final istinam. We walk towards Safa. We get to the top of Safa. We face the Qibla. We recite Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah. When we recite the dua underneath, and then we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The books of fiqh mention that we should make dua the extent of what it would take to recite like 25 ayahs of Quran. So maybe like a couple of minutes of dua we make at the top of Mount Safa. Okay, so once we make that dua, now we start walking toward Marwa, which is the other mountain on the opposite side. In the process, we're going to see on the ceiling these green lights, and I mentioned to you earlier, these are the green lights that mark where there used to be sort of this dip in the valley, and the Prophet ﷺ told the Sahaba, rush through here because we don't want to give the appearance that we're weak, right? We have to give the appearance that Muslims are strong and able. So for the men, it's recommended to actually run through this area, increase the speed, not sprint, right? But to actually run through this area. As we approach Marwa, we make the same dua as we made at Safa. So the same sort of steps, I'm just displaying it to you on the screen. You're going to face the Qibla, you're going to recite the dua, again, as listed here, and then intersperse the dua underneath it. And so what we're saying here is that you start with Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, and you start making dua, and interspersed in your dua to Allah, which is your personal conversation with Allah, you're going to intersperse the dua that's listed over here. This dua is from Hadith. And you're going to complete 7 stretches. So, I'm not sure why this. Oh, okay, yeah. So we're going to start at Safa. We're going to walk toward Marwa 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. We complete at Marwa, and our sa'i is complete. And each time we stop at the mountain, the same thing. We stand for a few minutes, face the Qibla. We make dua in the manner that I showed on the prior slide. This is an old image of one of the mountains. People could actually climb it, right, and then continue their Safa and make dua from the top of the mountain. But this is no longer the case. There is a little bit of the mountain left, but it's in an enclosure. What's our mindset when we're performing sa'i? We should recognize how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appreciates sacrifice. Look, this is, to me, I just find this to be incredible. Allah ta'ala doesn't expect much of us, and He appreciates every little thing that we do. And this is highlighted at this step of the journey. What remarkable act did Hajar alayhi salam do in order to have her footsteps ingrained for the rest of the world to have to follow? Was it that she climbed Mount Everest and performed tahajjud? Was it that she, hiked, 25 miles by herself and ended with, a night of worship? She was walking between 2 mountains in search of water for her son. It was a sacrifice that every mother today would make. And it's a sacrifice that every father today would make. That relatively minimal sacrifice was so beloved to Allah that He's had anyone who believes in Him from the time of the Prophet ﷺ until the end of time is mandated through the Hajj and in a way through the Umrah to follow those exact same footsteps, honoring that sacrifice. So we should think about what are the simple things in my life that I have been doing for the sake of Allah Ta'ala. Thank you, Ya Allah, for letting me do it. And not feel guilty about every moment of our life and how we're so negligent of this and that. And similarly, what are the simple things in my life that I can rectify in order to firmly solidify my place in my own record books in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is just highlighted here. I mean, this is a talk in and of itself. Finally, another mindset that I'm mentioning is that actions are by their intentions. The Prophet endings. The Prophet said in the hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالْخَوَاتِيمِ, that actions are by their endings. Meaning, the way we end something is how the action is reflected and rewarded. Now, many a times when we're doing sa'i, this is sort of how we're on our decline, right? We're kind of deflating in our umrah because we're tired and we're just trying to get it over. But really, this is our opportunity to up our game, because if we end our sa'i in a very high spiritual state, it's reflective of what our, inshallah, our umrah will be accepted as well. My teacher says, it's very difficult to do sa'i spiritually because people generally are on sort of the decline at that point. Some practical tips is to tie du'as into the circumstance when we're at the top of Safa and Marwa. So think about Zamzam. Reflect upon what impact Zamzam had. And Zamzam, the well of Zamzam, sprung open as a result of Hajar walking back and forth, to tie in the du'a there. The sacrifice of Hajar alayhi salam we already spoke about. tie in the family of Ibrahim alayhi salam into the du'as. And Darul Arqam, which is actually at the base of Safa, we should make dua when we're at Safa that, Ya Allah, in this place was where incredible companions like Hamza and Mus'ab radiallahu anhuma and Umar had converted and accepted Islam. Ya Allah, grant me the fervor for deen that they had, because it took place at the foothills of this mountain as well. So we should tie our du'as into the circumstance. Some frequently asked questions: do I need wudu when I'm doing sa'i? No, it's recommended, but you don't have to be in a state of wudu. Can I take a break? There's a little bit more leniency in taking breaks with sa'i, even prolonged breaks if necessary, as compared to tawaf, where shorter breaks are advised if they're needed. So it's acceptable to take breaks, pauses. If you need to even return back to your hotel and resume, it's actually acceptable. What should I be doing as I'm walking? So I've listed here on the next two slides some sample plans that I recommend people, sort of either take with them or create their own. And this is where this notebook comes into place. This can apply to tawaf or sa'i. But what I advise is write down a few things that you want to be doing during this. And I've given examples here. You can organize a short list on a sheet of paper by, for instance, your relationship. So during my sa'i, during my first round, I'm going to spend that time making dua for myself. Second stretch for my parents. Next stretch for my children, next stretch for my community. And that way, instead of reading someone else's book about what they did when they did their sa'i or what they recited when they were doing tawaf, because none of this is actually directly from the sunnah, I have my own book. And it's not really a book, it's just a list. It's a cheat sheet. I pull it out, I'm on round 6. Okay, round 6 I had planned to make dua for the oppressed in the ummah. So I'm going to spend that round doing it. Here's another example. You can organize it by theme. I recommend doing your initial tawaf potentially, if by just starting the first round of that tawaf by just thanking Allah. When's the last time we really got to thank Allah? Second round by just apologizing to Allah. Have a conversation about how sorry we are for the life that we've lived. And so this is an example. Organize it by theme. You can organize it by the relevance in our current life. Maybe everyone's life is different. I don't know what's going on, what problems you're experiencing. You don't know what problems I'm experiencing. You don't know what difficulties I struggle with or what my weaknesses are, and vice versa. So maybe there's some endeavor I'm involved in. Maybe my connection with the Quran. Maybe I'm trying to excel in my workplace. Maybe there's relationships that I need to mend. Have a list. Just mention a couple of words of each and then reflect upon those and make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be it during tawaf or during sa'i. You can also organize it by the form of dhikr that you want to do. Maybe you want to recite istighfar, salawat. There's one dua of Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu during sa'i that you could recite. رَبِّ اغْفِرْ وَارْحَمْ أَنْتَ الْأَعَزُّ الْأَكْرَمُ. Or you can organize it by the circumstance as well, and I've sort of discussed this already.